come here, but she actually appealed to you with the help of the
Former mayor of the city of Houston.
video.
It's
Я
really a
була
pleasure
мером
to visit with you today,
міста
even though
Х'юстон.
I
Мені
can't
дуже
be there
приємно
in
бути з
person.
вами, хоча я особисто
I
не могла бути присутня тут.
believe
Звук
that
пропав,
being a
і
mayor is
я
the most important political job anyone can have. I know other people disagree, but if you're a mayor, you are involved in people's lives every day. You have the direct ability to transform people's lives for the better. Every city does the same basic functions. The water has to flow, the toilets have to flush, the trash has to be picked up, there has to be a power supply, there have to be roads, there has to be law enforcement. Some of us have responsibilities for schools, but those basics have to be done. And then everything else is about quality of life, so that the cities that we help lead are places where one wants to live, instead of a place simply where one has to live or where one goes to make a living. The hardest part for many mayors is to get past the fact that most of our encounters with citizens are negative. People notice a city by exception. They notice us when we don't get it right. They notice it when they hit a pothole or the traffic signals blink or we forget to pick up their trash. They don't notice us when we do everything well, we execute well, and the city is transparent. Another hard thing about being a mayor is that we're so often focused on operational details that we fail to look at the horizon, to see the big picture, to see the things that are coming at our city, things that are happening around us that will influence us long term. On the other hand, one of the nice things about being mayor is that I have never met a mayor who wasn't freely willing to share any information they had, best practices, new ideas, new techniques, things that are happening in their city that I could take to my city. One of the things I hope you get from each other in this conference is a sense of companionship, comradeship, the idea that mayors have to stick together because the world happens in cities.
Ваші оплески.
реалізується
А
через
знаєте,
життя містян. While we were preparing the presentation of Miss Parker, we wanted to ask the following thing. Are there anybody, is there a woman mayor? Is there a woman mayor? Please raise your hands. And oh, here. And this is about the complexity of this job, the challenges which are faced by the individual. But we are going to increase the number of women in among the mayors. And let us talk to the mayor of the greenest city of the world. Bo Franco is the mayor, and it's actually.
This distinguished audience. So Waksha, Europe. The city has changed immensely, Mr. Bo. Let me go on with a few words about you. The city that he's a mayor of has changed immensely. The CO2 emission per resident were 2.4 tons last year, among one of the lowest, a 48% drop, which is one of the biggest in Europe since 1993. And also, Bo is a very, I would say, easygoing and open-minded person, and I will leave you in his hands for 18 minutes, and then we'll have a short discussion. Oh, the presentation, sure. I'll help you with this. Hold on. Давайте оплесками ще раз пана Бо привітаємо.
Let us welcome the mayor.
Good morning, all beautiful people. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Kiki. I'm a proud mayor of the greenest and most sustainable city in Europe. We've been appointed by European media as being the greenest city in Europe. We got an award last year from European Union of being the greenest city in Europe. And some years ago, we got a recognition from United Nations of being the best city in the world for climate protection. I was the mayor for, thank you. I'm bragging a lot. I was the mayor for only 30 years, but from the 1st of January this year, I'm the Lord Mayor. So I'm traveling all around the world and giving my good example, best practices from my city. The presentation will show our transition from a fossil fuel-free city to a city where we use bioenergy for almost everything. In the presentation, the first slide should be Lord Mayor and something in Kiev. Yeah, that's one. So this is the city of Växjö, a university city in the southern part of Sweden. I have to click. Does it work?
It should work now.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's not. Okay. From fossil community to a bio community. I studied political science, economy, and ecology for 25 years ago. And I found out that economy and ecology are two sides of the same coin. It's about taking good and long-term care of resources in a sustainable way. It's very important to stress that it's very easy to work in Sweden because we are maybe the most decentralized country in the world. All power at the local level. We almost have two levels of power in Sweden, the local level and the central level. So the local level is in our constitution and recognized for 200 years. We have an extremely strong economy and autonomy. So we could take all kinds of decisions at the local level without the government and the parliament interfering. So I'm very proud that we have so strong cities because strong cities are really needed. The background is that we started with restoring polluted lakes in the 70s. Almost all lakes in the city center are from renewable energy. All lakes are restored. We use renewable energy. We have a big cooperation with business life and the local university. This is how we define being the green city in Europe. Last year we got this recognition. The female Anna in the middle, she's the new mayor, and she's been working for me for 10 years. She was also in the parliament. We were in the national parliament together. So Anna is extremely committed and good mayor. And she and her team took this prize, Green Leaf Winner 2018. We also worked very much with Agenda 2030. Sustainability indicators have been in our budget for 25 years. So the whole city budget is a budget for sustainability. We have a lot of indicators where we measure sustainability. For example, gender, equal opportunities, education, economy, for example. How do we measure, for example, equal opportunities in gender? You compare females' incomes to men's incomes. That's the best way to do it. 50% of all politicians in our city are female. More than 70% of top officials in the city administration are females. So we are not really equal in that way. So Agenda 2030 is very important, and we work together with sister cities all around the world. Success factors for many years. This is the Sustainability Committee. It's me, the two deputy mayors. I could also say that all political parties in my city, we have agreed on environmental issues and sustainability issues for more than 30 years. That's unique in the world. When I was elected mayor in 1991, I gathered all political parties. We took a boat trip from Copenhagen to Oslo, drank a lot of wine, brainstorming new ideas for the city's development, and we defined the green issue as #1 issue for the city. And since then, all political parties are mainstream, more or less. So we only have green political parties in Sweden, and that's very good. We have a political consensus, we have a broad cooperation. So when the Sustainability Committee has decided, the city parliament has to agree, because the strongest politicians are in the Sustainability Board. That's very important. Why did we start this transition? We had the oil crisis. We want to be independent. We looked for new energy sources and to boost the local business life. Today we own a plant for producing electricity, coaling, and heating. So almost all houses, all private homes are connected to bioenergy. So it's clean energy. It's prime energy. It's the best energy in the world. We use waste from forestry for our plant. And we have never had so much forest as we have today in Sweden. That's the problem. That's another problem. We only cut about 70% of the annual growth. So that's enough forest for all kinds of use for energy, bioenergy. Renewable sources, we also use a small scale of hydropower, solar and wind. It's not much sun this time of the year in Sweden, not in Kiev either, but still the amount of solar energy plants are also increasing. We also take care of the organic waste, the local organic waste. Each citizen are obliged more or less to put the organic waste in a special box, and then we use the waste to produce local biogas to all public transports and for some cars as well. All city buses are on 100% renewable energy. 90% of the citizens like to do this work, and I see the connection between the green buses and the waste they separate. All waste are separated in 8 fractions in each citizen's home. So we are really good at recycling. And I'm a good example of circular economy and recycling as well, because I've been re-elected for so many times. That's from food waste to fuel. We work with a lot of European Union projects for energy transition, and we also work in the energy cities. I and 14 other mayors in Europe started the Mayors Convention some 8 years ago. The Mayors Convention is a club for mayors who wanted to go further than the national governments when it comes to sustainability and cut the emissions. Today, about 6,500 cities in Europe are members of the Mayors Convention. About 40% of the people in Europe live in cities that want to go further than the national governments. So that is also very important. The energy supply in our city today, or some years ago, so 64% of all consumed energy in the entire municipality area come from renewable. That's quite impressive. We have also cut the emissions from a low level with 65% since we started. We were the first city in the world to take a decision in 1995 to be a fossil fuel-free city. And since then, we have cut emissions with 65%, as I said, from a low level. So the average emission per capita in our city is about 2 tons. The average in Sweden, 4 tons. The average in Europe is about 12 tons. United States, Canada, Australia, up to more than 20 tons. So I think we have really done a good job to cut the emissions, and it's very important to do so. Energy use, renewable energy, of course, is very important. The climate target is also important. We should be a fossil fuel-free city by 2030. By 2030. 3 years ago, the national Swedish government adopted the same target. So Sweden will be the first country in the world, will be not a CO2 neutral, but fossil fuel-free country, 2030. And that's a very good agreement between all political parties in the Swedish parliament. They have looked what we have done in our city, and now our program at the local level is a national program, and we're very proud about it. The lakes are important. We have 7 lakes in the city centers. All lakes are clean, restored. So you could swim, and I have written in the master plan that each citizen should have walking distance to a nice, clean lake for swimming, for fishing, etc. So 7 lakes in the city center, and in the municipality area, more than 100 lakes. 95% of the lake have clean, good water. You can even drink the water directly from the lake. But we take the water from underground, naturally infiltrated water, no chemical added, so I think we have maybe the best drinking water in Sweden. So the lakes are extremely important for us. We have improved the quality, and we also discuss a lot of biodiversity. Some parks, green spots almost everywhere in the city. So biodiversity is always very important for us as well. Energy transition, transport steps. We are also cutting the emissions from transports. That's a main problem in most countries, the emissions from transports. By 2020, 50% of all new sold cars in Sweden will be environmental cars. We try to encourage business life, citizens, to buy more and more environmental cars. And of course, the mayor must set a good example. I've been driving an environmental car for more than 15 years. So everyone is watching what the mayor is doing. It's not important only to talk. You must set a good example by yourself. And the mayor's office and the mayor have also been responsible for all sustainability issues for 25 years. It's a way to show that the mayor cares, because mayors only deal with important questions. Other questions could be left to others. So that's why it's very important for the mayors to take the lead in the energy transition and building a sustainable city. We have a lot of actions for public buses, bus lanes, more bus lanes, more cycle path. We want people to take bike and to use public transports. And even when when you don't have any emissions from car, you still have too many cars in city centers. So it's not possible for a city which is growing, to take more cars in the city centers. You have to think in new directions. So public transports of all kinds and bicycles, walking is very important. Some years ago, 50% of the citizens in our city took their private car to drive less than 5 kilometers. That's rubbish. You can't do that. A problem we have that too many spoiled children in Sweden. They're spoiled because their parents are taking them to the closest school by car, instead of walking with safe bike lanes or lanes for walking. Parents drive their car to school. So that's the problem we're handling. Actions for public transport. The water, of course, is very important, as I mentioned before. It's also very important to bring new enterprises to our city. Since we started to work with sustainability, business life wants to invest in our city. That's about economy and ecology again. Business life wants to invest in our city. We take more and more businesses from Europe, from other parts of Sweden, but I should say also that most cities in Sweden are very clever to work with environmental issues. For example, we have a huge Volvo plant in our city. They are producing the big yellow articulated haulers. That factory was the first CO2 neutral factory in the world. And Volvo wants to be located in our city because we are a sustainable city. It's good for the reputation of business life, working together with the politicians and the city. CO2 and economical growth. We have had a better local economical growth than average in Sweden, although we have cut the emissions more than average. So economy and ecology, once again, is important. By going for renewable energy, you also support the local business life. Technicians, universities, small businesses, because they are working with solar energy, windmills, they're working with bioenergy. And the farmers also like us to work with bioenergy. Benefits and effects. The image is very important. We also work to develop sustainable circular economy. We try to work together with our citizens, and that's very important also. Everything we do together with citizens, business life, and the local university. The local university is called Linnéus University, after the famous botanist Carl von Linné. He once said that God created the world and I organized it. And he was as humble as I am. Wooden city. We have a target. 50% of all new buildings in our city must be wooden constructions. Why? Because wood is the only renewable building material. Concrete is not. It takes awful lot of energy to produce concrete. Wood is very important because it's the only renewable energy, only renewable building material. This is wooden construction close to one of our city lakes. We have learned the technique, and they are very good in Canada as well, to build tall buildings with wooden constructions. We build up to 20 floors wooden construction buildings today. And wood is even more resistant to fire than steel and concrete. But for many years, we were not allowed to build tall buildings with wood, because in the old times, the wooden cities were burned down many times. But the technique has now developed. So wood is very important as a building material. Last year, 67% of all new buildings were wooden constructions in our city. The markets were even better than the politicians when it comes to build new homes. Almost all new homes are built by private companies, but the private companies, if they want to buy land from the city, they must build low-energy houses, they must connect to the net, they must also build wooden constructions. So building companies are very happy to come to our city, and we have developed the technique together. And they are doing a lot of research at our university of everything from forestry to bioenergy, how you use wood for almost all purposes. Most cities maybe have an Earth Hour. We have an Earth Week every year. The Earth Week is created together also with university, business life, and schools. And we want all citizens to engage in one way or another when we have the Earth Week. We try also to invite international guests to give us good examples from other cities when we have the Earth Week. So the Earth Week is very important for us in Växjö. And most citizens attend the Earth Week in one way or another. What have we done? What have we more? Conclusion. Every city can do something. Every city must do something. And the importance of the local level. The author of the famous book, Benjamin Barber, he died, I think, this year. He wrote the book, If Mayors Ruled the World. If mayors rule the world, it should be a much better world. Because it has been stated many times today, mayors are closer to the citizens. Mayor has to deliver to be re-elected. Mayor can't just in a parliament talking. We have to act, we have to do something. The citizens want us to deliver almost every day. So the mayors are very important and the local level is very important. I think I have not so many minutes left. I think there's one more slide if I got the right presentation. This one. This is 50 years ago. I'm the local president of the local Beatles club in my city. So 50 years ago, Beatles, it was a Summer of Love, 67. Beatles released Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Think about it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Bo. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bo Franke, for your extremely expedient presentation. The greenest city in the world. Bo lives in Växjö and in Brussels. He is always on the go, looking for the context, for the ways to improve the life of the local people. And this is a good message in its own right for the mayors and not just for them. All the people here and things that we expected. One of our predecessors discussed it at this rostrum. I would like to invite to the floor a person who will discuss in more detail cashless city as a concept, as a notion. Visa had a research. 100 municipalities. One of the municipalities was the city of Kiev itself. The municipalities are developed in an innovative way, very speedily, and we'll see the map of this development and our city on it. Welcome, Arturo Gonzalez.
Thank you, Arturo. Yeah, that's the clicker. You can use it. 18 minutes, 17 minutes. Okay, cool. I'll show you 1 per minute.
Let me try this again. Dobru ranku. Mene zvate Arturo Gonzalez.
I'm Arturo Gonzalez. Good morning.
I'm Senior Director of Visa, based in San Francisco, California, one of the great cities of the world. And it's great to be at this great city of the world to share with you one of the new research that we have created at Visa. It's a global research platform that I think we want to share with you. I want to connect with you and share with you our work around innovation, because I know you all are interested on innovation. This is a great partnership opportunity. This is a great city. The future is occurring around us, is occurring today. So thank you for attending, and thank you for having me. So at Visa, we have been creating innovation for over 60 years. We've been connecting the world through payments. We've been enabling payments through technology, through our own network, through our own technology platform. And in that 60 years, we have created or have issued 3 billion cards that you could use anywhere. We have over 44 million merchant locations to use that card globally. But at the moment, we are in the midst of a transition that is being driven by technology, and that digital payments are driving even at a faster pace than in the past 60 years. By around 2025, we expect that there will be a 10-point increase both in the ways to pay and the ways to be paid. Really fast change, very quick change. You wake up one day and there's a new application that you could use on your smartphone. There's a new way for merchants to be paid. There's a new way for people to pay each other. Kiev is part of the story. And that's why I'm here, and I'm very happy to share with you that as a smart city, innovation that occurs in smart cities, digital payments are part of that story. Digital payments are a source of innovation. Digital payments are a source for cities to grow themselves, bring prosperity to their citizens, grow businesses, enhance the way governments interact with businesses and citizens, and is also an engine for growth in the economy. As I said, digital payments are at the core of what Visa does. Digital payments are enabling, at a national level, growth that has not been experienced before. So understanding that digital payments are in fact here, digital payments are a benefit for a national level, we at Visa decided to look at the data more clearly, because we saw trends. We saw that while nationals or economies were growing because of digital payments, and whether it was citizens, businesses, governments at the national level were benefiting, we also noticed that at a global scale, 80% of the world's economy is in fact created, generated in urban centers. You know this. You see this on a day-to-day basis. You've experienced this. You've seen how cities have played a central role. Yesterday, I visited the Golden Gate here in Kyiv and was fascinated to learn of its history, the bridge that was once there to enable people to connect and enter the city. People wanted to come to the city. People want to come to cities, and cities are at the center of economies. So why did Visa do this? Do this report? Well, we looked across the globe and saw that there are different types of cities along the digital spectrum of development with regards to digital payments. We saw that there are leaders, and there are cash-centric cities, and there are cities in between. So what distinguishes one city from the other in terms of the stage of development that they're in? We are interested in understanding, but we are also interested in sharing with you how to transition from one stage to the other. Now, you may wonder, well, why should we transition from one stage to the other? What are the benefits? So our goal is to not just provide an understanding of where cities lie in this spectrum, but also provide you with the value of digital payment to give you a case based on evidence to transition from one level to the next. We also wanted to provide you with a broad set of policies that we've seen around the world that have succeeded and have worked for cities depending on their circumstances. So those were our 3 goals in producing this report. What determines where a city lies in the spectrum? Well, 2 things, both digital payments usage and digital payment readiness. Readiness means that you need to have the capability to actually engage in digital payments. There are a couple of conditions that determine readiness. You need to have a financial account. The financial services industry in your area have to be able to provide you with the digital payment products. Then you have to get consumers to be engaged in digital payments and then continue to grow their use of digital payments. So depending on what level of readiness and usage exists at a city, that's where it determined where a city fell. Our report covered 100 cities in over 80 countries. That's a big scope for us. It's a big scope for anyone. So how are you going to organize these 100 cities spread in every continent, in every hemisphere, and every geography? You can see that by the color coding, that based on our analysis of readiness and usage, where the cities lie. But that's also a lot of information. How do you condense the discussion around 100 cities, even with 5 categories? So what we did is we lumped those cities into each of those 5 categories. We have a city like Lagos that is determined to be a cash-centric city. Then we have a city in Sweden. Where's the mayor? There's Bo. We have Stockholm, who is a digital leader. We have cities in between, like Chicago. We have Sao Paulo and Tokyo, and we have Bangkok. By the way, let me back up a little bit and say, before we get started, that what I want to do in the rest of my presentation is tell you the global findings. That way you have a sense of the scope and the evidence. And then what I'm going to do is talk about Kyiv very specifically. And I'm very excited that you will be the first people to see the study at this level for Kyiv. What the report does is try to be very specific about who are the stakeholders that will benefit from digital payments. Again, we could canvas and be very detailed, but that would be a report that never ends. So what we did was narrow our discussion by talking about consumers, businesses, and governments as the main stakeholders that would potentially be the beneficiaries of digital payments. We then took a step back and said, well, stakeholders will gain from digital payments. There's a secondary boost to the ecosystem that occurs as a digital payment. We call that secondary boost the catalytic impact. That is the economic impact that a city benefits and experiences from digital payments. So I will talk about that as well. But to give you a sense of how we determined the analysis, what we did was we examined the current state of cashlessness or cash use or digital payment use for every city, and then we asked the following question. What would happen in terms of digital payments and in terms of benefits, measurable benefits, if we were to move the level of digital payment used from that city that is currently being used on average to a level that is observed in that city among those in the 90th percentile of digital payments use. So we're sticking at the city level in our analysis, and we're saying, what is an achievable level of cashlessness? It's achievable because there is a significant portion, 10% of the population, already making use of that digital payments system. So we want to transition the average user up to that 10 percentile, the very top. So that is our scenario. All the numbers that I will show you represent an annual net benefit the net benefit is one of the contributions of our report because we want to be transparent. We want to say there are real costs of going digital and making use of digital payments, just like there are real costs of using cash. There are benefits to using digital payments. There are benefits to using cash. We are going to provide you, though, the net benefit of transitioning from a cashless or average cash society to a 90th percentile digital payment society. So first, the global results. In sum, for every year, there is a global benefit of $470 billion. I want to stop and have you take that in for a moment. That's an annual benefit. That $470 billion annual benefit in US dollars can be broken down roughly about $28 billion for consumers, $312 billion for businesses, and $130 billion for governments. And I'll go into more details about some of the components of those benefits in a little bit. Now, the second part of our analysis is the catalytic impact, the turbo boost, if you will. So just by having consumers, businesses, governments transition to digital payments, the economy gets a boost. And so on a global scale, we project that from 2017 to 2032, the world economy would gain 12 trillion US dollars. There would be a 19 basis point increase in world economic activity as measured by GDP. We would have 5 million more jobs as a consequence of digital payments. We would have productivity boosted by 0.14%. We would have wages increased by 16%. As a former central banker, you might know that, I definitely know that we are in a world of slow growth. So getting a boost, even a little boost like this that this implies might be a little, getting any kind of boost at this point in time is something not to be dismissed. So now that you know the global scope, I want to transition and talk about Kyiv. Where does Kyiv stand? Well, it's a digitally transitioning city, which means that there's a medium use of digital payments readiness and a low digital payment use. So again, medium digital payment readiness, low digital payments usage. What does that mean? That means that you're already on the path to reaching digital leader. So you're already getting some of that benefit. Some of the infrastructure is already in place. Folks who have access to that infrastructure are already making use of digital payments. So the gains are there to be reaped, and you're just beginning to reap those benefits. So let me show you and share with you the results for consumers, businesses, and government. First, for consumers, on an annual basis, the net benefit of moving from the current level of cashless to the 90th percentile of use in Kyiv, you would see a boost for consumers of 44 million per year. That translates to about $20 roughly per citizen per year. That's just from switching from cash to digital payments, nothing else. And again, I want to emphasize this accounts for the costs, the investment that consumers would undertake. For example, having to obtain a bank account if they don't have one, and the associated fees. They would reap that investment at the end of the year or during the rest of the year. Some of the benefits stem from the fact that they don't have to wait in line to pay their bills. They don't have to wait in line at the bank to get cash. There is a reduction in crime-related, in cash-related crime. So all of those benefits result in 44 million for consumers. One of the benefits that consumers get specifically is a reduction in time savings. We estimate that for Kyiv alone, in an annual basis, 26 million hours spent waiting to make cash transactions would be saved. 16% currently is spent, would be saved in transit, 46% transaction, so paying for your bills, or banking-related time. Businesses also benefit. For Kyiv, we see that for the cost of investing in the digital payments infrastructure, there is a huge return. The net benefit is $190 million for all businesses. Businesses benefit $190 million because they save in terms of labor savings, less time spent in having to account for cash. Consumers are more likely to spend more at the cashier as well from the consequence of digital payments. Governments also gain. In fact, we can expect that the city of Kyiv would gain $202 million. If the mayor is still here and he's looking for a little pocket change, he can expect around, we estimate, $202 million US dollars in annual tax revenue. This comes not from new taxes, this comes from money that is currently being collected in the informal economy, for example. Half of 202 million approximately would come from the informal economy. Not that the informal economy, the economic activities in themselves are illegal, but rather the form in which the transactions are undertaken are not being observed or are not part of the formal ecosystem. Transitioning informal activities to digital payments brings them into the light, and therefore would benefit from, the government would benefit from that taxation. The catalytic impacts, very quickly, for Kyiv, 15 basis point increase in GDP, increase in productivity, increase in employment growth, increase in wages. I'm rushing through the report, but the report is available in Ukrainian. Thank you for the local office for that. So why do people not adopt, if I've just given you the evidence of the benefits? Well, there are many real reasons, and those reasons include limited access to digital payment products, inadequate infrastructure, cultural habitual attachment to cash, security and privacy concerns, the misconceptions that digital payments are too expensive or they're not part of someone's lifestyle. So what we do in our report is that we provide 61, I want to emphasize, we provide 61 specific calls to actions, broad policy recommendations that national, city-level businesses, consumers, and digital payment service providers can undertake now to begin the transition to a greater digital payment ecosystem. As I said, there's a lot more in the report. I'm happy to share more of those details. I'll be here today and tomorrow. But you could also visit visa.com/cashless cities. We have a research tool that will allow you to select one of those 100 cities and move up and down a slider that will give you different scenarios than the one I presented to you here. If you want to see what would happen if Kyiv would become 100% cashless, that will give you the numbers as well. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions the rest of my stay.
Thank you, Arturo. Оплесками давайте Артуру.
A couple of questions from you, dear colleagues. If no,
And just yesterday, I had a conversation why banks are going also not like cashless, but like only online, like cloud banks. Is that the same thing when one transaction, digital transaction, would cost you, let's say, 3 cents, and one physical transaction with a teller in a bank would cost you like $3? Is that because it's only important for business to have this profit, or it's also important for us, the users?
The answer is mixed. The answer is yes to the first part of your question. Digital payments is cheaper for the banking system. It's not quite as extreme as you said, 3 cents to $3, but it's very real. Every country in the world is experiencing the same challenge with regards to what I call brick and mortar stores. The brick and mortar branches are very expensive to maintain. You have to pay the lease, you have to have staff, you have to have security, you have to have transportation of the cash. Digital payments eliminate a lot of those costs. However, remember that consumers have power in determining what works in the market. And consumers need to have that voice, consumers need to be heard, and consumers need to be listened to.
It's a great answer, but then how do we make consumers understand that we can hear them, basically? That's a very relevant question for Ukraine, I guess. So how do you make sure that you can hear consumer and you can give him his share voice?
You know, it's about partnerships, I believe. It's about having the digital payment service providers, the financial institutions, the government, business, consumer groups, all work together. And you know, one of the themes here that I've heard so far has been innovation, openness, competition, transparency. That is what enables that kind of action to occur in each market.
Thank you, Arturo. Thank you so much. Дякуємо ще раз.
Well, let us thank Mr. Arturo Gonzalez once more, ladies and gentlemen, and innovations. The attention to your clients, if we are talking about the business, or if you are the city mayors, a lot of your citizens, the citizens have to understand what you are thinking about. And we are going to continue discussing the innovation. Who has ever visited the South America? Who ever visited Argentina? Please raise your hands. Great. So this will be a very new example of innovative approaches from Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires is being called the Paris of the South America. Those who have been to Paris, you know that it's a fantastic city, but if you haven't visited Buenos Aires, please go ahead and visit it. And in Buenos Aires and in Greater Buenos Aires, 16 million people live there. Can you imagine that? And the city has to operate somehow. The infrastructure has to operate. The transit system has to operate, and public health system has to operate, and somehow Buenos Aires was able to digitalize so quickly their economy and their unique world. And it's a very progressive, innovative city. More about the transformation of the city. The partner of the company Deloitte knows about that. Deloitte is one part of the big four.
And this is one of the biggest professional networks according to the number of people. 250,000 people. So Álvaro Casales will discuss the infrastructural transformation
Good morning,
of
Álvaro.
Buenos Aires.
Good to see you, and enjoy your time. 18 minutes, please.
Okay. Here's the click. You should go to Argentina, first of all. It's really important that I tell you that you should go to Buenos Aires and meet this real experience. So thank you for having me here. I hope that this works.
La última gran inundación que sufrió la ciudad de Buenos Aires fue en 2013. En algunas el escenario era realmente lamentable. Tuvimos que lamentar la pérdida de vidas humanas, así que eso sirvió para repensar toda la estrategia frente a estos eventos. Arroyos tienen 1.500 kilómetros lineales de red pluvial que hay que mantener limpio para que el agua drene. HANA nos va a permitir pasar muchas operaciones que hoy se hacen manualmente a una operación remota y automatizada, que las obras hidráulicas funcionen en su máxima capacidad. Esto está relacionado con el mantenimiento de equipos, por ejemplo de las bombas de impulsión, o de planificar las limpiezas de los distintos ductos con los que cuenta la ciudad. El agua es absolutamente necesaria para la vida y en exceso incluso hasta puede llegar a quitarla. y para eso existe la acción del hombre y de la ingeniería que pone el agua en su lugar. La mejor forma de cuidar a nuestros ciudadanos es poder prever los problemas del futuro y construir las soluciones antes de que esto suceda. La ciudad ha instalado algunos sensores que le permiten tener cierta predicción y SAP a través del CRM y a través de HANA nos permite informar a los vecinos respecto de la evolución de los alertas meteorológicos. El desafío más importante que tiene el gobierno de la ciudad es adaptar la ciudad a las nuevas realidades, tanto las que se dan por los cambios de clima como los que se dan por los cambios de hábito. Creo que HANA, más allá de que es un producto de tecnología, genera un cambio cultural en la cabeza de los que tenemos que gestionar algún servicio crítico en las ciudades.
So this is a story about digital transformation, but technology is something that we think that comes after thinking or dreaming what we want to accomplish. I have to tell you that we started 8 years ago with this, and we started really small, but we had a big dream. We weren't sure where it was going to end, but as you can see, we have been developing small projects and functionalities over the years that started with something super small around public permits that allowed us to understand the city, to work with the city, to set a roadmap. And we continue working in different things that we were listening to different mayors that are common problems, but those common problems weren't addressed as the city needed. When we started, the city had a different landscape, a different way of working with this. And I have to tell you, at the beginning, probably we were pushing technology into the administration to understand what we want to do. We were working with processes, but then the city started understanding. We started understanding also what government was about for a consulting firm like us. And we started improving that to take to this level today that we're encouraging citizens to co-create with us, to co-create with the public sector, with the private sector, and to start living in a different city. So what I'm going to show you in the next minutes, it's this story, take it to specific points, and to give you some of our experience and how we are building this. To have an idea of what we are talking about in terms of a big city like Buenos Aires, I have to tell you that we're talking about more than 27,000 blocks. That's a lot of blocks to maintain, and each block has a lot of objects inside of it. You have to think about sidewalks, you have to think about green spaces, doors, and all the other public objects that we can contain on those. When we talk about doors, we are talking about more than 500,000 places where a utility company can break the city, and not necessarily that company is from the city. So you have to work and coordinate a lot of things around infrastructure. But at the beginning, and probably if you came from a city like Buenos Aires where we have a lot of potential, as we were talking last night, but we want to make that potential to real things. We have no processes. There was no information to make decisions. There was no scheduling. They do what someone at a certain point think that should be done, and they were matching something simple, what citizens were complaining about, and what the city need to address. So there was no match in the citizens' problems and the money that was being spent. That was a big issue. So to start, we thought about Buenos Aires as a big city, but we said, well, how we can address this problem regarding maintenance? So we thought about something simple, but at the same time, I think it was creative. We thought Buenos Aires as an industrial plant, a huge industrial plant. We're talking about 27,000 blocks that give us around 500,000 functional locations. Those who are in maintenance will address this, but that model allows us to set the model at the beginning and start going along with the transformation that was going on with the city. So if you see the first picture, you will see our main avenue and one of our main monuments. And after working for many years. This is a transformation, and this has impact for exclusive lanes around buses. We were able to support those kind of transformations through the solution of technology. At the beginning, tons of paper. If you're in a city like us, I don't know how it's working around here, but they told me that you might find this tons of paper in any office. This was a real picture, and we take this into a digit. So when we're talking about maintenance, we have 4 main stages in maintenance for a city. The complaint capture, the complaint verification, that is made by the government, someone that truly understands what's the problem. The scheduling and how you plan that work and how you can do also preventive and planned maintenance. And of course, the work verification. When we are talking about this new stage of co-creation, this involves in a different way the citizen, where they take part in understanding not just complaining, but being able to address or to certify that their complaint has been addressed. So this got working. And if you continue in that way, we are also to start adding more technology. Mayor Klivka was talking about waste management. We have been doing the same transformation, and for us, waste management is just another task of maintenance, and this was one of the biggest challenges that we were able to address because we did our homework at the beginning and setting a great plan. Now waste management is being managed in a central way with IoT and in the same platform. We are consolidating all the issues around that. This is something that, an example of the dashboards we were able to accomplish after many years of work around public buildings. So we are not only working with public objects in the public space, but we're also talking about public buildings. And that will give us all the maintenance in one platform, allowing us to understand the one way, and probably sharing different companies that will provide for that. So remember, we were on the picture of paper. Now they are doing their management through this dashboard and all the solution around it. And of course, we talk about technology, and sometimes we do a lot of investment, but we are not always able to measure how successful was that implementation. Luckily, the government was running a pool every month when they started, and there were citizens where they collected the regular, the positive, and negative feedback. And in the meetings inside the government, when they get to the top level to a certain topic like street or public lighting or stormwater, they receive a medal. This is the last meeting that we held after this process. You will see that these 5 technologies, after they invested and they work with processes and they work with technology that we were able to provide and the responsive city solution that we gave to them, and we co-create together, all the levels went up. They get the highest level in history, and this is feedback from citizens. This is not just what the government thinks or we can describe. This is citizens talking about their own city. And believe me, citizens in Buenos Aires are super critical. They are hoping to have the best results, and they were really hard on this. I can tell you about it.
La luz permite ver, en ese sentido la luz permite conocer, y cuando uno tiene conocimiento de las situaciones uno se siente más tranquilo y más seguro. La ciudad tiene como objetivo convertirse en una ciudad verde, una ciudad sustentable. La reconversión del alumbrado público de la ciudad de Buenos Aires por tecnología LED nos permite reducir de manera considerable el consumo de energía, nos permite eficientizar el servicio de alumbrado y nos permite bajar los costos de mantenimiento. Lo primero que se hizo fue reemplazar 91.000 luminarias. Todo el proyecto de recambio LED se llevó adelante registrando los planes de obra en el ERP de SAP. Eso nos permite tener control de los stocks, nos permite saber cuál es la velocidad de instalación y nos permite tener los certificados de los contratistas en tiempo y forma. Cada luz tiene una antena que transmite a un sistema central. HANA está integrado con ese sistema central. Eso nos permite vincular el sistema de telegestión del alumbrado público con las órdenes de trabajo y los tableros de control que se llevan sobre SAP. Esto nos permite tener un mayor control del alumbrado público, de las operaciones de mantenimiento y poder tener un detalle más ajustado de los problemas que se suscitan con los cortes de energía o con el vandalismo o con la rotura de una luminaria. La satisfacción del vecino respecto del alumbrado público ha mejorado notablemente.
La ciudad está más limpia, la ciudad está más iluminada, lo que encuentro mucho mejor que hace varios años atrás.
Tener la tranquilidad o saber que uno contribuye a que la ciudad esté mejor iluminada nos da energías para poder seguir trabajando para que la gente viva un poco mejor.
So this guy that you have seen, Rodrigo, he was the first sponsor around this. We think that we need a super smart counterpart and also someone that is looking forward to improve government. And when we have our first meeting 8 years ago, he told me we have one goal as a team. We have to build something that transcends us, something that hasn't have to rely on if I'm on government or if the Lloyd is working with us. It's something that anyone can continue doing this. I think we accomplished that. So we like to think that we can help to improve the city and the citizens' life. This is one of the most well-known monuments in Buenos Aires, but not for the local ones, but for the tourists. I wasn't sure about that until we start working on this. This is a flower that opens and turns around the sun. It was broken for more than 10 years. This is a tiny example. But after we implemented this type of processes and solutions, we were able to fix that and to manage that opening and closing through IoT systems, and that would allow us not to be broken because wind is strong, and if it's open when wind is strong, it will be broken soon. So it's expensive to manage it. It's not even something relevant in terms of budget, but in terms of people's life, was super important and get a lot of attention. So we also have to be connected to what people is asking and what we are doing. It's not about only the big issues, but sometimes smaller that have big impact. So this is a great example of citizens' lives. We also think we can help to transform governments. I know that in many places, the governments are not used to we work with consultants because sometimes they think that they can do it by themselves or that we're not so important. Believe me, we also have bias towards government, but I think that if we work together, we can get much faster there and we can think on a greater good, definitely. This is our last project in Buenos Aires. This is not the city, this is the province. You won't see the city, it's a tiny point of those regions. We're talking about a much bigger challenge. But what we accomplished in 6 years of work in the city, it took us 1 year in the province. Why? Because we have become, and when I say we, I'm talking about government, I'm talking about private sector, I'm talking about technology. We can become much more efficient and much more sponsorship around it. So when the new government took office, the first thing she asked is, I want my dashboard. So that's a total different conversation that we have when we started at the city. So we believe we can help to create an impact. This is our former mayor, that he was part of this, or sponsor of this amazing transformation. So we also think, and I know it's important for mayors to be here, that we can help to shape the future. So we like to think that we had something to do with his career and being a president now. So thank you very much for your time. I hope that you have any questions. This is President Macri, for those that they don't know. He used to be a mayor for 8 years. He was the principal sponsor. Now he's the president. The vice mayor became the governor of the province. And the chief of staff is the mayor. So we have tons of work. We are super glad that we can improve this, and this is another way of addressing things. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you enjoyed this.
Дякуємо, Alvaro. Thank you, Alvaro.
Thank you, Alvaro.
As usually, I have a question. Yeah. Якщо у вас є запитання,
If you have one or two questions to Alvaro, you're welcome.
This is Tim Hanna. I'm the solution that we developed with it. Responsive city, yes.
Well, I'm from Kiev. I'm Kievian, and I'm looking forward to understand whether it's possible to introduce and install the system to Kiev, and how, and who are the stakeholders that you need to compel.
Well, I think it's a great question. I have been around for the last days. I think that I understand a couple of things, but really I don't understand much about Kiev. But I think that I found some things that I only saw when we started with this. I saw a couple of faces when we showed this, and they say, I don't think this is possible in Kiev. And I saw that face before, and believe me, this is possible. And we were with the ambassador of Argentina yesterday and our CEO here in the local firm with Andre, and we start talking about that, if what's possible. I definitely think it's possible. We are not talking about complex stuff. We're talking about simple stuff. The complex is to put it to work and to work together and start getting the best of each sector to take it. Definitely is possible.
Alvaro, there are representatives of small cities as well as the large ones, and for them to use the system like this, how different is that? Because Buenos Aires is huge, like immensely huge. Kiev is large, and the cities which are represented here are not that big.
Great question again. We are working with the province of Buenos Aires. It's different than the city. The province has 135 cities. They are small cities, small regions. We have developed the same solution in central ways. We use it as a shared service, and that definitely takes down all the barriers that you could have if you're a small city. You share infrastructure, you share the knowledge, and you take this to another level.
And for us, but at least to me here in Ukraine, it seems to be struggling. How do we compel the actual citizens that this is important what we're doing, support us please in the short term, because it's important in the long run. Let's say we need to drill half of the roads just to install the system, and it's going to create a trouble for a week or two, but then in the long run, it's a great investment. How do you deal with that?
You won't avoid the upset at the beginning. We had that in Buenos Aires. My friends called to me if I were a public servant and say, what you are doing with government? I say, I'm not government, but look, this is going to work better. Remember the first picture where they turned down the main avenue? It was full crowded of people. They said, this is not going to work. After 1 month of the implementation of the new transportation system, they say, this is great. They have built 7 since then, and they know that the beginning is going to be trouble. But of course, citizens must complain. They should complain. But if they see results, they say, well, this is changing. Not overnight, but over the years. So we can do it.
Thank you, Alvaro. Giacomo, Alvaro, оплеском привет.
Cool. It is possible to introduce changes starting small, and the success stories start with first steps, and definitely in short term people will be unhappy, but in mid-term and long term it will demonstrate the benefits of the system. It happens so that the majority of the mayors are men, and you, dear friends, just confirm that. And now the data you're going to see at the screen, and it will be confirmed. Well, the women mayor is make only 5% in the world, only around 5%. There is the 23.3% of women are the members of the boards of big companies, and this has been the research has been done by the European Commission, and the Innovation and Technology Institute in Ukraine tell us that 30% of entrepreneurs are women and 32% of economic leaders are also women. Now I'd like to invite to the podium the president of the Saskatchewan Association of the Communities, City Communities, Ms. Barton. Yeah, your applause, please. Where are you? And she is an individual who knows what's the role of women play in leadership.
You have your 15 minutes.
50 minutes, you say?
1-5.
5-0. My Ukrainian is not that good. Dober den. How did I do? Yay!
Yay!
Good morning.
My friends, that's as good as it gets. Good morning, everyone. It is a delight to be here with you from my amazing hometown of Weyburn, Saskatchewan, Canada. Have you been? You need to come. I'm also here representing the Promise program, which is funded by the Government of Canada and implemented by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. It is always an honor to be invited to speak with global elected leaders on challenges and successes in governance. Having been an elected official for over 2 decades, I speak with sincerity and a lot of credibility when I say one of the greatest innovations we can bring to office, one of the greatest innovations that we can bring to office is engaging more women in leadership. Do I get an amen? Thank you. Today I will talk to you about women in governance because I so strongly believe in the importance of women being represented in the leadership levels. I will share with you my story of challenges and success. Women play a vital role in social and economic development, and to ensure our voice is heard, we need to be in the room and at the table, and in leadership roles alongside men. We have a valuable perspective to offer, and wherever and whenever I can, I encourage women and girls to get involved in politics and community development. I served the City of Weyburn City Council and was elected 3 terms as mayor of that fantastic city. I was always so very humbled by the trust the people of Weyburn put in me, and I believe I elevated that city in my time on council. In fact, in the near end of my term, we were named the best city to live in the Canadian prairies and 5th overall in Canada by Money Sense magazine. Thank you. Outside of my community, I was very lucky to be involved in many of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities initiatives and sitting on its executive committee, as well as innovations for women in local government, including work here in Ukraine. I was also extremely lucky to serve as the president of the organization that represents our cities, towns, and villages in my home province of Saskatchewan. The Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association has been around for 113 years before I was elected the very first female president. I had no idea when I ran for that position that my victory would make history, but I am glad to blaze a trail for other female leaders who will come after me. Although I didn't set out to become SUMA's first female president, it sometimes takes a mindset intent on change to move things forward. In Canada, our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, set out to create our country's first gender-balanced cabinet after his 2015 election. He could have very easily continued to let men dominate these ministerial positions and portfolios, but instead, he made a conscious decision to ensure that his cabinet was half women. When media asked him why that gender balance was so important to him, he simply said, "Because it's 2015. This statement has become known around the world and is part of pop culture in Canada. And it has led the Government of Canada to support gender equality initiatives and policies across our country. When we focus our efforts on supporting women and girls, it ultimately benefits everyone. Canada believes that the most effective way to reduce poverty is by promoting equal rights for women and girls and by advancing gender equality. Earlier this year, the Canadian government launched a feminist international assistance policy based on that very vision. You want to talk about innovation in governance and development policy? Right there. Canada's international assistance will target gender equality and women's empowerment because when women's rights are respected, when women are valued and empowered in our communities, it creates a society that is more prosperous, peaceful, secure, and united. This new policy focuses on breaking down the old barriers and structures to enable women and girls to to benefit from international development assistance. That means access to education, economic development, and political representation all over the world. Breaking down traditional power structures and barriers means we need to create new approaches and modernize our approach to local and national governance. Nationally in Canada, only 26% of municipal elected leaders are women, and 16% of those are mayors. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities has a target of parity, which is to reach at least 40%. Here in Ukraine, only 18% of municipal council members are women, and only 7% of mayors are women. So, friends, how can we increase that number by empowering more women to run and to be effective when they're in office? Well, in 2005, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities established a standing committee on increasing women's participation in municipal government. The committee oversees the Federation of Canadian Municipalities initiatives and discusses methods to increase women's participation in our local governments. FCM, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, has pushed forward several innovative initiatives to bring Canada closer to gender parity in municipal leadership, and guess what? We are succeeding. The first step is to identify why women aren't running. Well, friends, often it's as simple as we're not being asked, and also not having access to the same resources and support networks. So, to address this challenge, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities has created practical programs such as a toolkit to increase women's participation in local government by providing candidates with information on how to campaign, how to fundraise, and how to present themselves to citizens and media while they're running for office. In addition to this, they published a guidebook and offer programming to help municipalities recognize and remove the things that keep young women from participating in local government and to get them engaged. There is also a regional champion program for municipal politicians across Canada to encourage women to get involved in local government and to provide mentorship in that process. I took part in that when I was Mayor of Weyburn, and I was happy to host workshops and speak on my role. Individual municipalities in Canada are also doing some great work. I want to speak a little bit about the City of Edmonton, Alberta. They have examined their policies to see how they affect people based on their gender, their race, their ethnicity, religion, age, and physical and mental disabilities. They've also trained staff, but better, and council to apply this analysis by using a gender-based analysis. Council members are now required to undertake training and be certified within a year. In addition, the city is reviewing its policies to ensure a gender lens is being applied, and this includes issues such as snow removal and transit. By reviewing policies this way, we can see how we are affecting people, how we're benefiting people, and how we're hurting people by the policies that we're making. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities programs in Ukraine have supported the City of Edmonton to get involved in Promise. It also is thanks to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities that I've traveled to Ukraine several times in the past, and yet my Ukrainian is still so poor, to talk about the importance of gender equality. I was involved in programs that the Federation of Canadian Municipalities led with the Association of Ukrainian Cities as the gender government representative for Ukraine. When this program started, there were no women on the board of the AUC, and there was no gender policies, no gender training, or any services. Our program with the AUC focused on getting women empowered and involved in the economic and political life in their communities. We put together training and we built a strategy that worked towards making institutional change with results that we could measure. We created some small-scale projects that would help us come up with some new ideas and would test new practices to demonstrate that things were working. We also, and this was important, focused on working together, sharing knowledge and building connections between our friends at AUC and in Canada. I hosted some folks in Weyburn, Saskatchewan, remember that, during study tours in 2011 and 2013. These tours were a great chance to talk about economic development, working with nearby municipalities, and how to make our communities stand out and look attractive to investors and visitors. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities' work in Ukraine has made a notable difference since it began in 2010. For instance, the AUC has amended their state statutes to ensure at least 5% of their board is women. They're not quite there yet, but please stay tuned. There have been workshops and events around gender equality during the AUC annual conference and at the All-Ukrainian Gender Equality Forum. And the AUC set up a committee on equal rights for women and men, made up of women and men, which is overseeing the implementation of their gender equality strategy adopted very recently. And just this summer, the AUC awarded funding for 8 projects focused on gender initiatives, and some focused on mining data to help create programs and strategies for gender equality. Some facilitated female entrepreneurship, but all will be beneficial to Ukrainians. It has been a very humbling experience to take part in these programs. A couple of years ago, while I was in Ukraine, I spoke about my experience as a woman in politics, hoping that I could inspire and share my knowledge with the local women. But after my speech was over, I found myself in awe of the stories of the Ukrainian women who were raising money at bake sales to buy helmets and repair their aircraft carriers. And all I could think about as I sat there was that every single story of mine paled in comparison to theirs. But when a man in the crowd got up and disputed the importance of women in politics, I remembered how important it was for me to share my experiences. I realized that biases like women should be in the kitchen preparing for their man was the kind of thing that my grandmother must have heard all the time. So it made me think, whose shoulders am I standing on? Who came before me and who did all the heavy lifting and all the work that allowed me to become the mayor of Weyburn and the president of the Saskatchewan urban municipalities? So I truly wanted to share my experiences with both women and men and to be a part of the solution so other women know that they can be leaders in their communities as well. As I said, I wasn't planning to make history when I ran for the Saskatchewan urban municipalities president. I just wanted to serve my city and my province, and I wanted to make a difference. And I used that platform whenever and wherever I could to make people's lives better. It just seems to me that this is part of what makes women such great leaders, is our desire to make life better for the people around us. That's true for women raising money for orphans, working as volunteers to help clothe the army, or treat wounded soldiers to work in factories. And it's true for me, as a Canadian, making sure that I'm a role model for my 4 kids. I want my daughters to know they can step outside the roles that people tell them that they should be in. I want them to be able to stand on my shoulders and reach heights that I just can't. And I want my sons to know that a strong man supports a woman instead of tearing them down. And they have a great example in their dad, too. My husband, Greg, is my greatest cheerleader and my greatest support because he was willing to step outside of the traditional gender role and take on a lot of the domestic work so that I could spend more time making Weyburn and other Saskatchewan hometowns better for all the people who live there. My family always was and always will be my most important job, but I put so much love into my work with local governments that it was like a second family for me. And that family truly came through and supported me when I needed it. You see, my friends, I am sad to say that I am no longer the mayor of Weyburn or the president of the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities because I lost the last election in October 2016. But the outpouring of love that came from my second political family kept me going through some very difficult times and some tough transitions. They even nominated me for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Roll of Honor. Thank you. And last year truly has had its bumps and bruises along the way, but I know that I am still a community leader and that the impact of my work will ripple through Weyburn, Saskatchewan, Canada, and even all the way here to Ukraine. I don't say this to brag. I say it to remind myself and to remind all of you that the importance of women in governance is long-term. It's to benefit our citizens today and to make a brighter future for our girls and our boys, to give them a set of shoulders to stand on. Having female leadership is good. No, having female leadership is great for everyone. Women make excellent leaders, not because we're better than men or because we want to be above them. That's not it. We want to bring a new perspective to the table and create better communities for women and men. Local government, as we all know in this room, has a big impact on people's lives, covering all kinds of responsibilities that make our cities and towns good places to live with a great quality of life. And local government can't help but be close to the people. You spend your days right there in your communities instead of going off to a capital city. To make sure we are representing the people well, we need to make sure that we have many different voices around the table. The more different experiences that are there to share, the more ideas that come forward, the higher chances that we have of building a successful city. The work that happens here in Ukraine this last several years has been, well, it's been tremendous. And I encourage all of you to keep pushing forward. My friends, it has been nothing short of an honor to address you this morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Deborah. This is truly inspiring. I have few questions, maybe just one, because we're really out of time. You mentioned that you still, and you will, be a community leader for a longer time. And as a female leader, you can answer a question which is this. You've seen a great progress in Ukraine regarding this question. But then do we have enough female leaders who are those who take responsibility and saying, okay, I'm the community leader now and I will show you the way? Do we have enough of these people?
Well, absolutely. I've met some incredible women along my journey with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities programming that we've done. One stands out to mind, if I may share a little bit of a story. I was sitting down for lunch with her on my first visit to Ukraine, and that was when she found out that the AUC had no women on their board. And she was quite taken aback, and she says, how do I change this? And you know what? They did. So yes, the willpower is here, and from the first time that I've been to Ukraine, we were trying to remember that, I think it was 2012, 2013, till now, I see, as I said, I chose my word properly, tremendous change in equality and how those biases are being perceived and how they're brought forward and being acknowledged.
And the last question would be, if you have any questions, okay, у нас є запитання, we have a question. З аудиторії. Будь ласка.
While the microphone is being brought to the person who is going to ask a question. Дуже дякую.
In cities for how high they have on the agenda social issues and the effective solutions that they find for homelessness, for drug use, for HIV/AIDS. Unfortunately, this is not yet the case for many cities in Ukraine. So I would like to ask you, what is your recipe for putting politically unpopular issues high on the municipal agenda? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's a great question. In fact, I'm not sitting on the board of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities any longer, but we do have one of our first vice president here sitting in the front row with me, and he brought news. They just had their board meeting in Ottawa, and the Canadian government has just launched a homeless strategy, and we're very excited to hear how those details are going to roll out. I think that it's been a lot of advocacy on behalf of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. The relationship that our small, medium, and large cities have brought to form a cohesive group through that association has been the key, and I would encourage you to keep working with AUC in Ukraine to keep that up.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have to close the questions so far because we are 15 minutes behind the schedule. Deborah, thank you so much. Ще раз оплески Дебрі, будь ласка.
Now, coffee break. I would like to invite the mayors of the city to sign your manifesto. If you share these values, please sign. If you are not, so you just have coffee.
Or tea, and then we'll get back to the stage.